When it comes to your retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everyone else has? Of course not. You're unique and have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated just like a number. This is your retirement. So it's time to think differently. And you're in luck because you've found the Retire Your Way podcast with ILG Financial. At ILG Financial, you won't find generic, run-of-the-mill plans containing the same old cookie-cutter solutions. Dave, Chase, and the ILG Financial team focus on building one retirement at a time using their Think Differently philosophy. And that means your own comprehensive plan with customized solutions built to achieve just one goal, yours. So put on your Think Differently hats and get ready to take back control of your retirement today and for all the tomorrows to come. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast was created just for you, and it's starting right now.
We're back with another edition of the Retire Your Way podcast. I'm Ron Stutz along with Dave Lopez, the founder of ILG Financial. Hope you're having a good day today. We appreciate you spending a little time with us. And if you would like to give Dave Lopez a call, the number is 540-720-5656. That's 540-720-5656. You can have a conversation with Dave Lopez about getting ready for retirement. And first of all, Dave, how are you? It's good to be back with you.
It is good to be back. Always enjoy our conversations, the ones on and off the air, right? They're all good.
Exactly. And we have some very important things to talk about today. And a common theme that we discuss on this podcast is the idea of income in retirement and how to spend and save effectively so that you never run out of money. This watchful eye on spending in retirement is more important than ever as the Federal Reserve has rolled out a new rate hike as of Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. And Dave Lopez is here to tell us a little bit more about what these rate hikes mean, what is possibly to come, and who these actions affect most. Dave, what can you tell us about what we're seeing in the news about the Federal Reserve?
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, for time's sake, let's jump right into what is going on with these Fed fund rate increases. This is, if you're paying attention, the third time this year now in a row that the Federal Reserve has said they would raise the benchmark federal funds rate. That this time the raise was 75 percentage points, or 0.75, just under 1%. Mm-hmm. It now hovers cumulatively, the Fed fund rate, at 3 to 3.25%. Now that's important because officials suggest that this won't be the last time, and I would heed their announcements. This won't be the last time this year. Their goal is they expect to hike rates to get them around 4.4%. Ron, by the end of 2022. Mm-hmm. So what that means is over the next, 3 months of the year, we can expect another 1 to 1.25% rate hike. So it's more is coming. Yeah, my goodness. And seeing this in real time, this is what everyone's seeing right now. It can create worry, can it? Worry and unease. Particularly, Ron, with retirees, many of whom are living on fixed incomes. Right. So why are the Feds doing it? Well, increasing the Fed fund rate, the Federal Reserve is attempting to combat this inflation problem that we're all suffering with at the grocery store, at the gas station, everywhere. Yeah,
it is everywhere.
Right. What's important to see is, and most of the folks listening today can identify with this, many of us have taken on this task of combating inflation personally, right? As they see their everyday expenses going up, right? Mm-hmm. Groceries going up, gas going up, everything's more costly, and they're actually taking steps with their own budgets by buying less or moving to cheaper type products or traveling less. So add the stress of trying to trim your budget, right, to costly inflation. Add that stress to the fact that they're also handling the stress of this market volatility, right? Warren Buffett famously said interest rates are like gravity when it comes to stocks, which is what we're seeing, which is interest rates go up, the stock market comes down. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So this is a big concern for those who have their retirement accounts sitting in the market.
This is not good for folks who are worried about their 401ks and all of that kind of thing. These higher interest rates are said to usher in other examples of pain for Americans.
Yeah, and that's actually the word the Fed used, right? We expect more pain. So when you hear that, that's what we call Fed speak, Ron, right? It's like another language. You just have to know what they mean. So what do they mean by usher in more pain? When the Federal Reserve says this, it's mostly referencing that their goal is slowing the economy down. They're trying to reduce demand for products. And how do you do that? You slow the economy down. Well, what does that mean, slow the economy down? Well, it means rising unemployment rates, right? It means drop in the stock market. It means drop in the demand for housing. Well, if interest rates go up, less people are buying houses, so your housing values will drop. That slows the economy down, but the end result to you as an individual is pain. You could lose your job if there's rising unemployment. Your value of your house goes down, or you can't afford a new house because interest rates go up. And as everyone's seeing, your lifetime savings that you had counted on for income in retirement is dropping like a rock right now. So, what's happening with the Fed? Now, let's take a look at what it means for you individually. If you are in or near retirement, Ron, and let's talk about, if we can today, 3 concrete things that you can do to protect yourself as we move through yet another unsure and uncomfortable economic time. How does that sound?
We've all gotten a little bit accustomed to this because of COVID and everything else, but it is definitely going to have an effect here in the near future. And I definitely want you to explain all of that so we can all get it.
It is, because it's different than COVID. It's yet another emergency. So you're right. We are used to this adrenaline of, DEFCON 1 or whatever, right? But it's always something different. So how do we deal with this new emergency that we're trying to deal with if we're in or near retirement? Well, let's talk about 3 things. First thing, watch out for your spending. Understand that what's happened here, companies have been trying to catch up from the COVID economy, and they've been trying to catch up by producing a lot of inventory. So they were ready for this increased demand. But if the Fed is trying to slow the economy, there will be less demand. And that is going to make these companies panic, Ron. And when companies panic because they have too much supply, they have too much inventory, because that costs them money sitting on the shelves, right? What do they want to do? Well, they're going to try to get it off the shelves. And how they're going to do that is by tempting us with lower prices or extreme sale prices to reduce their surplus inventory. Does that make sense?
To make you spend money now.
Yeah, they want the money, and they want the money off that dead inventory off their shelves. So the first thing I'm telling folks is don't be tempted to spend on things that you wouldn't have bought anyway. Don't succumb to this temptation of a sale price or a good deal. That's always important, and now it's more important than ever. That's number 1.
Okay.
Second thing, stay the course and don't obsessively look at your market portfolio day to day. Day to day moves, even big shifts in one day, panic shifts, are not going to affect your long-term plan. So all you're doing is raising your blood pressure.
Yeah, a lot of people look at these things every day, and that's a good way to drive yourself crazy.
It is, and it doesn't change anything. And if anything, it will hurt you because it'll drive you to make an emotional decision, which almost always is the wrong decision, right? So U.S. stock indexes turned down shortly after this Federal Reserve, this latest announcement on a rate hike. It's not a surprise. It's what we expect. It's an immediate, visceral reaction to a panic reaction. If you're someone who has their nest egg tied up in the market, first, you need to get with your financial professional and evaluate what we call your risk tolerance. That's how much market drop, how much pain can you personally stomach?
And so many people out there have no idea. They know what their risk tolerance is. They will tell you, but they have no idea how much risk they're carrying inside their portfolio.
You're right. Or even if they do, they don't see how it translates, right? It's very different than saying I'm a moderate risk. Okay. Well, that means really nothing. What it really means is, hey, if your account loses 50 grand, are you going to go into a seizure and move everything to cash at the worst possible time? Or is the number 70 grand? Or is it 20 grand? That's what we mean by you want to have a real concrete idea of how much pain in the stock market you could stomach without making a panic decision. Number 2, identify what your actual goals are for your money in retirement. That's different for everybody. Your goals will determine how to invest. But if you don't know what you're going to use your money for, you're just throwing spaghetti against a wall with your investments, right? It's like getting on a bike and just pedaling and me going, hey, Ron, where are you headed? Go, just pedaling, Dave. right? Just pedaling. Identify your goals should be the first thing you do before you ever even look at an investment. What am I trying to do with this money now? What do I want to do with it in 10 years? And that's number 2.
I'm still stuck on throwing spaghetti against a wall, trying to, hope that it gets stuck,
Yeah. And well, that whole idea with your goals is if I said, well, what are we trying to accomplish by throwing the spaghetti? No, just throwing it. I want more. More for what?
Yeah.
So identify your goals, know your risk tolerance, identify your goals, identify your retirement timeline. So if you haven't retired yet, right? How long before we need to start using some of this savings? 2 years, 15 years? We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the podcast. Mm-hmm. Are we planning to set up a plan so that this money will last no matter how long you live, even if you're lucky enough to make it to 104, right? Or you're just trying to plan like many financial people do, build out a plan where you live to 88 or 90.
Yeah.
Which could work if you die at 88 or 90. If you live past 90, the good news is you're not dead. The bad news is you're out of money.
Yeah.
Right.
And the bad thing is that so many people find themselves lying awake at night worrying about outliving their money. And I know that you can help prevent that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, there have been studies that have actually indicated that folks who have income guaranteed, whether it's pensions or whatever, where they're not worried about running out of money, they actually live longer. And it makes perfect sense, right? Because
I can believe that.
Every day you live longer, you're sticking it to the federal government with a free check if you're getting a government pension, right, or a Social Security check. Whereas if you're pulling it out of your savings account, every year you live longer or every day you live longer, you're stressing more, right, because you're closer to running out of gas.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. I hadn't thought about that, sticking it to the government with that
Stick
money.
it to them. Stick it to the man, right? In the immortal words of, I'm dating myself, but remember that School of Rock? Stick it to the man.
Yes,
right? So
I do.
You can stick it to the man by having a residual income stream for life. Right. So the longer you live, the more you stick it to the man.
And the best revenge is living well.
That's exactly right. So the man could be the government if it's Social Security or a pension, right? It could be your old company if you've got a company pension. You can stick it to the insurance company if you've got some type of a lifetime annuity, right? And you stick it to your insurance company by outliving the money, and then you can make a fortune off them. Mm-hmm. There's all different kinds of ways to do that. So when we're talking here about this second thing of getting with your financial advisor, right? Mm-hmm. Identify your risk tolerance, identify your goals, identify your retirement timeline. Then the last thing is with your financial professional is assess if there are any strategies that you're not using that you can employ to help achieve your goals better, either preventing more loss if that's one of the goals, or protecting your retirement income from market volatility, or guaranteeing you more income if that's your goal. But just say, hey, what else is there available that I can employ? What other tools are in the shed that I could use to accomplish my goals? Mm-hmm. So that's the first kind of thing we talk about there. Once you have a plan, Ron, stick to your plan. Right? Yeah. If you were building a shed and you had a whole blueprint of what you were going to do, you wouldn't get halfway through the blueprint and then throw the blueprint away and go, we'll wing it from here. Put a plan together, stick to your plan. For our clients, Ron, these tumultuous stock market times we're going through right now, these are times that we have actually prepared for and planned for. And it doesn't make them any less uncomfortable. No one likes to see their accounts in the market going down. But these times can be much less intimidating and certainly less frightening if you understand that, hey, we built this into the plan, right? I'm still going to have my income. Many people, their income's not affected at all by a 20% market drop, right? Because they planned for them. And you can too, if you're listening today. There are ways to plan for that.
That is worth a lot of peace of mind right there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if that's important to you, it can be accomplished. So your portfolio and your retirement plan should be set up in a way that they are not only able, but fully prepared to weather economic storms like the one we're going through, right? If you don't have one, if no one's ever talked to you about that, get with someone now and start discussing it. It's better having the talk now than later. If you don't have a plan or you're not comfortable with the one you've got, again, speak to a financial advisor.
I would suggest you call ILG Financial, and that number is 540-720-5656. Once again, that's 540-720-5656. Call ILG Financial. Get a conversation going with Dave Dave Lopez or maybe Chase Lopez, and make sure you have a plan that's put together in the proper way so that you don't have to lie awake at night worried about things. You will have a great deal of peace of mind.
Now, I appreciate you saying that, Ron. And of course, we'd love to help anybody listening. Call if you're not ready to call. Just go to the website, right? www.ilgfinancial.com. We've got a wealth of information on there. You can even reach out to us through the email, however you're comfortable.
Yeah.
If you want to have a conversation with us, there's a way to reach out to us.
Once again, that is www.ilgfinancial.com, and the number is 540-720-5656. Okay, Dave, what's next and what we should do?
Yeah, so with that said, what we were just talking about building out your plan or getting a plan, if you have a retirement plan, as our clients do, right, and you're comfortable with the plan because we've addressed what we were going to do when this scenario happened of a market drop or interest rates rising, and if part of that plan included leaving some money, preferably money that you don't need to touch, right, but leaving some money in the stock market, stay calm. Right? We knew eventually the markets were not going to go up forever. Part of the plan would be that the markets would go down for some period of time. Mm-hmm. That's built into the plan. So stay calm. Don't obsess over short term, and constantly checking your balance is just going to give you high blood pressure. Stick to the plan.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, keep your blood pressure low.
Keep it low. You know what it equates to? And I talk about this a lot, but imagine if you've never been to the beach and somebody's bragging about the big waves at the beach, right? And you go to the beach and you see a few waves, but it's the very end of high tide. Then all of a sudden the tide pulls out and the waves kind of go away and someone's panicking and watching every wave. These are low. You said high. I go, nope. Some are high, then it's like in and out, right? Yeah, they'll come back. But if you panicked, even though in your head, intellectually, you know it's going to turn around. You understand high tide and low tide.
It's cyclical.
It's cyclical, right?
Yep.
So remember, I promised you 3 things, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The first thing was watch your spending, right? The second thing was stay the course. And don't look at your market portfolio. Third thing, thanks for keeping me on track. Right now, specifically, more than ever, keep an eye on credit card or other high interest debt, right? So this may be the time that you want to talk to one of your financial professionals about, is this the time to tackle or start to pay down any credit card or high debt if you have means to do it, right? This rate hike and other future rate hikes affect interest debt, specifically high, in this case, what we call high interest debt, credit card debts or things that have higher interest. They go up when the Fed rates go up. So as we have seen, these rate hikes will continue at least once or twice before the end of the year. And we may continue to see them in the new year. So discuss with your financial advisor if this is the time to start to pay off or pay down some of your high interest debt. Very important, Ron.
Yeah. And what about, checking with your bank about savings account interest rates? I mean, those are actually going to be going up too, right?
That's exactly right. So what happens is oftentimes now your interest CDs and savings will go up for money that you want to keep liquid and safe, but they don't go out of their way to advertise it to their existing clients.
Certainly not. Yeah.
Right. So you might want to do some shopping and see what's available for some, temporarily, a temporary place for your emergency fund or your storage of money. But what you don't want to get in the hang of is, let's imagine, Ron, that you've got $10,000 in debt in a credit card at 12 or 13% interest.
Yeah.
But you think you're somehow okay because you've got $15,000 saved in checking. Well, you're making 1 to 2% in checking and you're paying 10 to 12% in interest.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Right. So that's when you need to at least have the discussion to, hey, am I better off getting rid of the savings and paying off this 12 or 13% interest? It's more important now than it has been in the past.
You're listening to the Retire Your Way podcast with Dave Lopez, ILG Financial. I'm Ron Stutz. And Dave, I think it's safe to say that, as always, but especially when we get news like this almost every week, it can be scary for those in or near retirement to not have that regular paycheck coming in every week or every month, whatever it is. How do you deal with these kinds of rate increases and inflation when you don't have money coming in?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ron. And it's the essence, isn't it, of what we do here at ILG Financial and other financial advisors who specialize specifically in retirement planning. So when that paycheck is no longer coming in, how do you invest your hard-earned savings so that you can generate the money that you need to live in retirement, so that you can give yourself the best chance to never run out of money, so that you can do all of this while weathering these type of economic storms. How do you do that? Well, the answer, if you've been listening to the podcast long enough, right, this is the broken record part of it, right? The answer is unique to each and every person, right? Each of you have different retirement timelines. Each of you have different savings, both investments and amounts in savings. Each of you have different goals in retirement. Each of you have different family obligations that may cause you to spend money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to be aware, to give yourself the best chance, Ron, to accomplish your goals. Collaborate with a financial advisor, right? It is like a coach, right? You always want to have another set of eyes looking at what you're doing. Imagine if somebody looked at your plan, Ron, and after you walked them through what you thought was a good plan, they said, hey, I think everything's lined up. Wouldn't that be worth the meeting? Just have another set of eyes validating what you did?
It certainly would.
Right?
You can,
but if they could just, even if they didn't dramatically change the plan, what if they just tweaked one little thing? They said, hey, have you considered this? You're like, I didn't even know I could do that. That could either give you a better chance of success,
and
right, or make
oftentimes
your
that
money.
happens when folks come to see you. I mean, sometimes you can pat someone on the back and say, hey, you're in great shape. But other times you may need to make a little tweak and show them a better way.
That's right. Even if you've had success, right? Imagine if you were trying to, again, let's say you're building a shed outside and you're really a hard worker and you've made some good progress and you say, hey, Dave, I just want to take a look. Well, how do you think I'm doing? And you're sitting there just hammering nails, but it's taken a while, but you're a hard worker. Well, it's taken a while because you're using a rubber mallet. Right. And I might say, look, everything you're doing is great. Can I make one tweak? Let me get you a regular hammer. And I think that's going to just make your job a lot easier than a rubber mallet. Yeah. And you're like, wow, I didn't even know there are other kinds of hammers out there. That's what the advantage of a coach or retirement specialist is. I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. And a lot of options and a lot of tools that people can use that most of us aren't aware of.
That's exactly right. And that's frankly, think about this. That's no different than your job.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine if I came to your job place and said, hey, I think I've got it all hang up. I watch all put together. I have been winging it. I've had some success. And you're like, well, I've kind of been doing this for 25 years. We've got systems and processes in place over 15 or 20 years of successes and failures. So, maybe we could just work together and I could point some things out so you don't have to take 20 years to figure them out.
All this is really interesting, Dave, and, I'm getting a lot out of it, and I think all of our listeners to the podcast are enjoying it as well. But any last ideas before we close our conversation today?
Yeah. How about some last ideas? Remember, keep in mind, these are general, right? Mm-hmm. Everything's going to be very specific to each person listening, which is why we really want to meet one-on-one. But if you're worried about inflation or you're worried about outliving your money or you're worried about the market, one of the things in retirement to consider is what we call multiple income streams in retirement. So many of you may have one or more pensions, right? Many of you may have annuities in place that are generating a monthly income for life, no matter how long you live. Many of you may have real estate that's spitting off what we call positive cash flow for income, right? Some of you have all of those things. Right. Some people are simply drawing down or withdrawing from their savings until they run out of money. That can be very risky. It's a strategy. Some retirees, Ron, this is interesting, to combat some of the worry, are going back to work part-time to bring in some extra cash to preserve the retirement accounts and to preserve their investments in this down period. Similarly, some who were forced to retire in the pandemic are pursuing going back full-time. We call that unretirement, believe it or not, kind of like Tom Brady did, right? Yeah. And Brett Favre did several times, unretirement, to literally re-enter the labor force in full-time for a couple of years. This idea of going back to work, either part-time in something that you enjoy that's low stress or full-time in your old career, it helps you in retirement in two ways. Right? When you go back to work, one, you continue, I recommend continuing contributing to your nest egg, right? If you have the ability to do that when you go back to work, this helps on two fronts. One, you're not pulling money out of savings because you're living off your income from your job. And two, you're adding more back into savings. Both will help you down the road when you eventually then fully retire.
Yeah. And hopefully you're going to be able to do something that you really want to do rather than going back to work because you have to and you're not really enjoying it.
Well, this is one of the big successes of retirement that we drill into folks, is that get out of your head this idea that, hey, if success is retiring at a certain age, where it's artificially propped up. Some people say 62, some say 65. And if I don't retire by 65, I didn't do it right. Mm-hmm. Well, no, this is all arbitrary, right? But you go back 60, 70 years ago, there was no retirement date, right? We were all farmers. Let's go back 100 years, right? Everyone worked on the farm. You worked forever on the farm. Mm-hmm. Right? You didn't have a retirement date. So get out of your head some arbitrary number of retirement date. The other thing is, if this idea that, hey, if retirement actually means moving into going to do something that's less stressful, or more importantly, more enjoyable, that I can get up and do, where I'm not dreading Monday morning. I want to get up because I like the people I'm working with. And it doesn't matter how much I'm making, because I have enough in my retirement plan to cover most of my bills. So I can be working for less money or less hours or both, doing something that's fulfilling and enjoyable. And that can really affect, in a positive way, your retirement planning, just getting that little extra money.
In that case, you're kind of retiring to something rather than to get away from something.
That's exactly. It's more of a transition, right? Because frankly, most folks, if you just retire and do nothing, often at best that can last a couple months, 6 months, maybe a year. But imagine if the ultimate goal, without thinking about it, for most people might say, well, if I won $2 million or $10 million, I'd retire today and go live on the beach. Mm-hmm. Really? So you'd sit on the beach for how long? 2 weeks, 6 weeks? Right? If you did it 6 weeks, now you've got diabetes, high blood pressure from all those margaritas, right? Maybe a drinking problem. And right, you're lethargic. You've put on 70 pounds and you just sit there for 9 hours and then go to bed and do it again. Right?
That sounds kind of boring, actually.
Yeah. So what we really want to do is live a fulfilled, rich life. And you live a fulfilled, rich life by having purpose. So it just gives you this great opportunity of saying, look, forever I've been working in this job, which I like, I'm good at it, but I don't want to do it forever, right? And it's stressful. Now you can transition into saying, what do I want to do? What is fulfilling and I love? And if I can just make, an extra $1,500 a month doing it, all of a sudden it completely changes your financial plan, right? And you might only do it for 7 or 10 years, but that completely improves your position exponentially, because that's $1,500 a month. What's that? Roughly $20,000 a year? Yeah. Roughly? Okay, $20,000 a year. If you just did that for the first 10 years of retirement, that's $200,000 you didn't have to pull out of savings.
Yeah.
Right? And you've saved that money for another 10 years. So now that $200,000 in savings might be worth $300,000. And now you're 10 years older. So that's why we love this idea of transitioning instead of retiring. So
yeah. All of these are really great ideas, Dave, and I appreciate your passing them along to us. And the important thing is for folks to give you a call. I'm going to get that number out in just a second here.
Yep, that's it. And I would kind of close by saying, go back and listen to the podcast, make some notes, and then just reach out to us. But you want to make a plan. If you already have a plan and you don't understand it, get with someone and walk through the plan again, review the plan, go through the points that I mentioned today, but make sure you're in a position where little events like market ups and downs aren't going to be things that you're going to say, look, I didn't plan for this. And as a result of not planning for it, it completely imploded my retirement plan.
Mm-hmm. Well, the important thing is to look at where you are right now and then give Dave Lopez's office a call and come in and have a conversation about all of this kind of thing. The number to call is 540-720-5656. Again, 540-720-5656. When it comes to retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everybody else has? Of course not. You're unique. You have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated just like a number. This is your retirement, so it's time to think differently. Get in touch with the folks at ILG Financial. Again, that number is 540-720-5656. Dave, it's been my pleasure to hang out with you for a while today.
My pleasure. It's great talking to you, and we'll catch up next time.
Income, legacy, growth. It's all right here at ILG Financial, and it's all about helping you plan for retirement your way so you can achieve your financial goals. Call ILG Financial at 540-720-5656, or you can go online to ilgfinancial.com to learn more. This has been the Retire Your Way podcast with Dave Lopez. I'm Ron Stutz. Thanks for listening. The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for any individual or entity. All information contained herein is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of Dave Lopez and do not necessarily represent the views of the Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory services offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Alpha Star and ILG Financial, LLC are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.